Today, Quinn, we're going to talk about the famous hot coffee case with McDonald's. In public perception, right, this was thought of as one of those frivolous lawsuits.
I had heard this story told as careless woman's driving. While she's driving, she spills coffee on herself. She had it between her knees and she sues for millions of dollars.
That is like a very gross simplification of this case.
As we're going to talk about today, there's a lot more to that story.
Ever wonder what really happens when your rights are violated and what you can do about it? Ever wonder what the law looks like outside of TV dramas and headlines? Meet Quinn Mayberry, a Harvard-trained trial lawyer who has helped individuals recover millions of dollars, and Alex Lobert, Quinn's lifelong friend and your law translator-in-chief, here to make the law make sense. On this show, they cover headline-making legal battles and overlook cases to show you how to fight back and win. This is Legally Curious.
Alex, good seeing you today.
Great seeing you, Quinn. I have a bit of a warning, I think, to lead this one off today. I think the content of this episode might be a little hot. Now, the question, to be clear, though, the question I think is, how hot is too hot?
A little bit of foreshadowing. Clever.
Exactly. A little bit of foreshadowing.
So we're talking about Liebeck versus McDonald's. Have you heard about this case, Alex?
I definitely have. I think many of us have heard about Liebeck v. McDonald's. It, in public perception, right, this was thought of as one of those frivolous lawsuits. But as with a lot of the cases I think we're going to cover in this podcast, that's really not the whole story. And it really was a case of negligence.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, I remember hearing about this case growing up. It was on an episode of Seinfeld that I think a lot of people have probably seen. Late night pundits covered it for what felt like years. But yeah, so I had heard this story told as careless woman's driving. While she's driving, she spills coffee on herself. She had it between her knees and she sues for millions of dollars. As we're going to talk about today, there's a lot more to that story.
Yeah, that is like a very gross simplification of this case.
Speaking of gross, if you're looking into this case, another disclaimer, some of the pictures are gnarly. I think Google actually filters them out.
Yeah, not safe for work. I definitely tried to, do a little research for this, and it was blurring some of them. And I said, you know what? I'm going to pass. There are certain things that I'm just going to take I'm just going to read, actually, the stenographer's notes as opposed to trying to get this one firsthand.
So I didn't take a pass, looked at the pictures, and don't advise. Don't advise. I was eating lunch while I was checking this out. I was doing some research and spit it right out. Spit it right out.
This is why you're a lawyer. Some lawyers deserve hazard pay, Quinn. Some lawyers deserve hazard pay.
Some of them get it.
Some of them get it. Exactly. Well, okay. How about we set it up? Quinn, do you want to lead us in with the facts of this case?
Okay, for starters, would you believe it if I told you she wasn't driving? Her grandson was driving at the time that this happened. So as a matter of fact, he was the one driving the car whenever they picked up the order, this 49-cent cup of, McDonald's coffee, but he had pulled over. So the car wasn't even moving at the time of the spill. Miss Liebeck was sitting in the passenger seat and was trying to put some cream and sugar into her coffee. I always assumed that the burns were, fairly serious, but like, how does this case even go to trial? How do we get big jury awards if there weren't some serious burns? But I was under the impression that we're talking about, second degree burns, something that left a little bit of a scar. It was kind of unpleasant or unsavory. These injuries were life threatening. So a couple of the doctors at the emergency room who worked on her didn't think that she was going to survive. And she was in the hospital for 8 days following this incident. So she had third-degree burns covering a significant portion of her groin and, buttocks region. And then she had like full thickness burns that required skin grafts. She lost a ton of weight, again, was hospitalized for, I believe it was 8 days, trying to recover from this. And then she was partially disabled for years following the incident.
Yeah, I think that part often got omitted from the late night jokes.
Totally.
Right?
It's like you think of this careless old woman who spilled some coffee on herself, shouldn't have done it. Everybody felt kind of bad for her and got carried away. In reality, this was truly life-threatening. Here's where things take a little bit more of a sinister turn. So, hot coffee can cause burns. Sure, everybody knows that. But we're talking about coffee that was at 180 to 190 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, that's roughly the temperature of a car radiator after it's been driving. This was McDonald's practice at the time. They thought that the coffee was a bit more palatable. And where things, again, take a particularly sinister turn is McDonald's quality assurance manager during depositions he said that he wasn't particularly surprised one way or another that there were past complaints, of which there were more than 700. There's 700 documented complaints. So you've got to imagine all of the complaints that weren't documented. And a lot of the jurors at the trial said the quality assurance manager just seemed really indifferent.
First of all, it sounds like really bad hire on the quality assurance manager. Like, indifference is not one of the things I would love of my quality assurance manager.
You at least want somebody who's going to feign concern.
Right.
Like, at the very least, let's get somebody in there who's going to fake a little bit of compassion.
Right. Like, I get this a 49-cent cup of coffee, but still 700 complaints. I think we need to start taking this seriously.
This was a sweet 79-year-old woman living in Albuquerque, New Mexico, who, as far as I can tell, had never brought a lawsuit in her life to date, who suffers these really serious injuries. And they're like, well, it happens. I don't know what to tell you. It happens nearly 1,000 times that we know about. And what you going to do,
I think the most patently ridiculous part of this, though, is 49-cent cup of coffee. And they're like, honestly, we need this for the flavor. Like, this is like, if it's not,
turn up that dial on the temp.
Yeah, right. Boiling's 212. We're like, if we're not just a half tick below boiling, it's just not going to taste the same.
It's insane. And so to give just like a little bit more context to the temperature, they asked, so I saw the video of this deposition. They asked the quality assurance manager if you're able to drink coffee at those temperatures. If you were to take a sip and it went down it fully went down your throat, would that be okay? And he said, oh, no, absolutely not. Would not advise.
What? Okay, I'm actually going to give you really, really fast. Can I give you this is a small chart on temperatures and what happens to drinking it. So apparently above 180 degrees. So at least he knew his stuff. Almost instantaneous third degree burns, right?
You can't fault him for that. He knew his science.
He was really bad at assuring at least safety. Maybe that's the problem. He wasn't a food safety manager.
Yeah, he's like, no, I can tell you exactly what's going to happen. You're going to have full thickness burns within seconds. Yeah, absolutely.
If you could
Where's
drink
the lie here, Alex?
Right. If you could drink it, it's delicious. But it's above 180 degrees. It's almost instantaneous third degree burns.
That's sweet forbidden fruit.
Right. At about 160 degrees, burns will happen in about a second. Apparently, like even at 140 degrees, it could cause burns. So like this is, just patently crazy, like in terms of how hot this was.
And so I think regular coffee, the piping hot coffee that we're used to, everybody knows it's hot. There's no doubt that, people drink hot coffee, right? Something like 160, 170 degrees most of the time. And those extra 20, 30, 40 degrees in this range are just like extremely problemsome. Also, just to get nerdy about the temperatures for a quick second, one of the differences here, so coffee at 160 or 170 degrees can cause third degree burns, but a big difference is it's going to take something like 20 seconds to do it, as opposed to, maybe as quick as 2 or 3. And so whenever you're spilling it at 180, 190 degrees, virtually as soon as it comes into contact with tissue, it's going to cause these extremely serious burns. At 160, 170 degrees, you can quickly reach down and kind of brush it off and start to mitigate a lot of the damage. And by the way, a lot of the damage is going to be second degree burns that even if it leads to some scarring, we're not talking about life-threatening injuries here.
Now we know what is too hot. Question answered. 180 degrees, at least for coffee.
Yeah.
So those are the facts of the case, right?
Yeah.
Stella Liebeck, 79-year-old woman, passenger seat of a car, spills way too hot coffee on herself.
Yep.
Third degree burns, and they knew about it.
How the real kicker.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And they knew about it. How did we get from this to a case?
Unfortunately, we have yet another sinister turn, and a case is just riddled with them. So Miss Liebeck's family sent a letter to McDonald's trying to notify them that they had a coffee machine that seemed to be malfunctioning. It resulted in these incredibly severe burns for their mother. They wanted to alert McDonald's to the problem so that they could prevent this from happening again. They thought it was an aberration, not their standard practice. And I think they literally used that word in the letter. And then they requested, the medical bills had started mounting. I think at the time they sent the letter, they were at 10 or 15K. They were going to have trouble covering the medical bills. And so they sent a letter to McDonald's, no intent to sue, just asking them to pay for her medical bills. Any guesses on McDonald's response here?
I'm not feeling very confident that they did the right thing.
Bingo, 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 bingo. So they offer $800.
Oof.
Tough.
Not a lot. That doesn't seem like the appropriate answer for the facts that we just talked about.
I concur. So left with not a lot of choices, some stonewalling from McDonald's, mounting medical bills. They eventually proceeded with a lawsuit.
What's crazy about this too, right, is again, she's asking for help with medical bills. Because I think, back to the setup here, that often this is portrayed as an old lady who was taking advantage of big old Walmart or big old McDonald's. Yeah. And, she's just asking for her medical bills to be taken care of. So,
we always hear about these frivolous lawsuits, this jackpot justice, these phrases that have been associated with this case. And it's like, there wouldn't have been a case if they would have paid for the medical bills.
Right. By the way, jackpot justice, it's great line.
The PR team, we'll get to this later, but fantastic PR team for McDonald's.
They spent so much more money on the PR team than they offered to Miss Liebeck.
Unfortunately, not a joke. They quite literally spent significantly more. Them and other large corporations have spent something to the tune of over $100 million by people's best estimates in the 10 years following this incident, trying to create reform or, as Ralph Nader says, deform around these issues where they wanted to make it harder for people to bring these lawsuits. Should we talk about the arguments made in the case a little bit?
Yeah, let's talk about the arguments.
Yeah. So, okay, we kind of teased the concept of negligence earlier. To put it plainly, negligence is causing harm by not being reasonably careful. So you've got a duty to act reasonably. You breach that duty to act reasonably. It causes harm to somebody else. So, I mean, this happens in other contexts. Think about somebody running a red light, T-boning another car, and hurting the other driver. You have a duty to drive reasonably whenever you're on the road. Running a red light is not driving reasonably, and that lack of reasonable care caused harm to somebody else. You're responsible for the harm. Seems only fair. So there was a unanimous jury verdict. So we're talking about 12 individuals, working class people in New Mexico who, people in the community, just like you or me or whoever's listening to this podcast, who probably don't like frivolous lawsuits, right? By the way, the defense, incredibly well-funded, good lawyers, they're making their best arguments. And if this was just a BS case where somebody spilt coffee on themselves because they were careless and there was no negligence here, I think the jury would have gotten it right. And they almost always do, to be honest. So they're combing through the evidence. They decide that McDonald's is negligent, but they also, this is a careful jury. They assess comparative fault, and they decide that Miss Liebeck was 20% at fault in this case. And so they reduce the compensatory damages by 20%.
Seems reasonable. Thoughtful jury here, right?
Yeah.
So tiny bit of fault. Should have been a little more careful, Miss Liebeck.
Yeah.
At the same time, mostly McDonald's fault. Given, let's be honest, the solve here was not complicated. It was turn down the dial.
Yeah.
Turn down the temperature dial on your coffee machines, please.
100%. Again, these are 12 people in the community that have no vested interest in the outcome whatsoever, who are just doing their best to get this right. And all 12 of them agreed that McDonald's was negligent. So then the ultimate outcome, or not the ultimate outcome, but the verdict that the jury awarded initially, $160,000 to Miss Liebeck for compensatory damages. And here's where we hear about the multi-million-dollar verdict. $2.7 million in punitive damages, which, by the way, equate to 2 days of coffee sales at the time for McDonald's.
So there we go, Quinn. At least a little bit of McJustice is served, right?
You would hope. So here's where one of our final tragic turns on the day. So the judge acknowledged McDonald's had acted willfully and recklessly, but reduced the punitive damages award to under $500,000. On top of it, there was a confidential settlement that happened after this reduced award. We don't know exactly what the total award amount was, but it was very likely under $600K.
Well, there we go. So she didn't even get that $1 million payday that we all heard about.
I
By
know,
the way, Quinn,
if she's going to be slandered and dragged through the mud, this sweet old lady who did nothing wrong, at least give her the payday. I mean, my gosh.
Quinn, what do you think the average revenue for McDonald's store was in 1994?
1994, there are probably thousands of McDonald's. I know they're doing crazy revenue. These little local businesses, what, like $1 million?
Yeah, $1.5 million.
My
each McDonald's
goodness.
store was doing $1.5 million. So this was a drop in the bucket for McDonald's. And I think that actually sets up a point you were starting to make earlier, right? Which is McDonald's had a lot of money. And I know they gave a little bit of it to Miss Liebeck, but I think they used a lot of it for a couple other things.
Yeah. They used it to hire a bunch of lawyers and lobbyists.
Oh, man. I'm sure to make it easier, right, for all of us to sue companies.
You would, you'd hope, right? No, of course, it's to do the exact opposite. So these companies banded together. They swore an oath to never have another sweet old lady get the compensation she was due, and instead started this lobbying campaign to make it harder for ordinary people to sue these companies.
So what are some personal takeaways that we all can have with regard to cases around negligence?
Yeah, great question. So, I would think about three things. Make sure you take care of yourself, get to the doctor if something like this happened. If you're just in a wreck, get out of the roadway as quickly as possible. Just take care of your safety first. Second, document everything after you are in a safe place. Take pictures of the damage, to yourself or to your vehicle, or, keep the defective product. And then third, contact a lawyer. So call somebody who has experience with cases like this and do that as quickly as possible. And ideally before ever speaking to the other side or to the insurance company. They've gotten pretty sophisticated in these types of cases, and they'll approach it oftentimes with compassion that Miss Liebeck didn't see, but for the purpose of minimizing the amount they pay and minimizing your damages and the harm that they caused. So get a hold of a lawyer who knows what they're doing and is able to help you assess the value of your case and is able to help you fight the large corporation or insurance company most effectively.
Honestly, that's what Ms. Liebeck was able to do, right? And so really positive is that Ms. Liebeck did get her day in court, and she was able to stand up to McDonald's, a really big corporation. So, and that's something we're going to hear a lot about this season. We're going to talk about a bunch of cases where, again, maybe the public perception was a little wrong, or companies were just behaving badly and people were able to stand up for their rights. I think, in the end, right, we need to remember it wasn't about greed. It was actually about safety.
When that verdict comes down from 12 individuals in their local community, so often they get it right and vindicate the rights of that person. Now, I don't know about you, but tomorrow morning, though, I might be doing iced coffee. I've been switching over all day.
There we go. We'll see. My friend, this has been so much fun, and I'm looking forward to chatting next week.
Yeah, same. And next time you see that hot coffee on your to-go cup, pour one out for Miss Liebeck.
I will.
All right.
Better quit.
See you then.
If your rights have been violated, give Mayberry Law a call at 310-776-3764. It's free, and we would love to discuss what you can do. This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice or create an attorney-client relationship. For specific legal guidance, consult a qualified attorney